In Brazil, former presidential candidate Simone Tebet announced her support for candidate Lula da Silva after being the third most voted candidate in the first round. Colombia's Congress starts the discussion of the initiative to modify Law 418 in an initiative of President Gustavo Petro to give legal basis to his total peace policy. In view of OPEC Plus cutback agreement to stabilize energy markets, the United States announced the release of 10 million barrels of crude oil from its reserve to hit prices. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Brazil, former presidential candidate Simone Tebet announced this Wednesday her support to candidate Lula da Silva after being the third most voted candidate during the first round last October 2nd. The former candidate's support for Lula comes at the same time as the announcement of former candidate Ciro Gomes for the second round of the presidential elections. President Jair Bolsonaro, on the other hand, gathered in the last days the support of several governors from different regions, while he plans a meeting with former President Michel Temer to receive his support for the runoff. Former Brazilian President Fernando Henrique Cardoso expressed his support for the candidate of the Workers' Party, Luis Lula da Silva, ahead of the second round of the presidential election on October 30th. In a message published on his Twitter account, he reiterated his support for the fight for democracy and social inclusion. Colombia's Congress began discussing on Wednesday the initiative to modify Law 418, an initiative of President Gustavo Petro to provide a legal basis for his total peace policy. The initiative is considered fundamental to advance in the negotiations with the National Liberation Army and other insurgent groups that have political connotations and decide to lay down their arms. Senator Ariel Avila considered that this project is fundamental to guarantee that the nation becomes a country of peace. The representative to the Chamber for the Historical Pact, Alirio Uribe, explained that dialogues should be advanced and peace agreements signed with the groups that have a political nature. Meanwhile, a position that was supported by Senator Humberto de la Calle, who affirmed his support to the government in this purpose.
This is a process that takes time, and therefore, from the beginning, we have always distinguished, I repeat, the purpose of the Havana talks, and we understood that there were some remnants of violence that would continue to act, and among them, the presence of the so-called National Liberation Army. That means, to put it more frankly, that in the interventions that we intend to make, we do it from a perspective of recording practical experiences and not from the perspective of arrogance.
Colombian Senator Iván Cepeda expressed that the peace policy states that it is necessary to reach national agreements to put an end to the causes of the armed conflict and the violence generated in the country.
So a first issue raised by the total peace policy is we must reach national agreements that put an end to the causes of armed conflicts and violence in Colombia. A second issue is that we have turned our backs on the territories. From the cities, we don't understand the complexity of the conflicts that exist in the communities. The population that are involved in violent confrontations between groups that today have been multiplying in an exorbitant way.
In Uruguay, high school teachers and students joined the university sector strike to demand a higher education budget. The Teachers Association of the University of the Republic considers the increase announced by the Senate to be insufficient and assures that the budget increase granted leaves aside important lines of growth of the institution. In this sense, the university movement summoned this Wednesday all the faculties to carry out a mobilization in the vicinity of the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. Such mobilization is in defense of the university budget, the study conditions, and the teacher salary recovery. Previously, representatives of the sector indicated that the strike is a measure defined in an inter-university negotiating way.
We understand that the reform is a methodology that places a curricular diagram that hasn't been discussed, not only at the level of the unions and syndicates, but also at the level of the teaching technical assembly. It has been rejected by all the others. At the same time, it proposes to place the student in the center of knowledge when subjects are cut. There are no state policies regarding the general health of students attending public education, nor are there any state policies regarding the socioeconomic problems that are becoming more and more pressing.
Let's take a short break, but first remember you can now follow us on TikTok at the account at teleSUR English, in which you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In view of the production cut agreement reached by OPEC Plus to stabilize the energy market, the U.S. government announced the release of 10 million barrels of crude oil from its reserves to hit oil prices. The White House indicated that President Joe Biden rejected the agreement reached by the main oil producers and announced that in response he had issued an order to the Department of Energy so that this volume of crude oil will be incorporated into the market. Washington justified the decision with the argument of the impact of the conflict in Ukraine and specified that the measure will take effect as of next month, just like the OPEC Plus cut. Additionally, the U.S. government informed that it could increase the volume of the release if it considers it appropriate for its interest and will study measures to reduce the influence of OPEC in the world energy market. The U.S. government seeks to further restrict exports of next-generation chips to China and plans new limits on the nation's technology companies. The administration of President Joe Biden is preparing new export controls on semiconductors and machines to manufacture them. In this regard, Beijing rejected the measures imposed and said that Washington seeks to ensure its hegemony in the technology sector and prevent China from acquiring the capacity to develop state-of-the-art technology. Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered to transfer to Moscow the management of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. According to the decree signed by the Russian President, the Kremlin will have until January 4, 2028 to plan the use of financial resources to ensure the safety of the plant, issue the necessary licenses, and resolve other issues related to the financing of the nuclear power plant. The Russian state company Rosenergoatom, quoting the plant's new general director, Oleg Romanenko, assured that all the plant's employees will keep their jobs and social insurance. The Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, the largest in Europe, has been under the control of the Russian military since last March. The European Union Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell said the 27 member states agreed in their intention to grant Ukraine membership in the bloc. During his speech at the plenary session of the European Parliament in Strasbourg, the head of European diplomacy also pointed out that work is maintained to reduce the bloc's independence on Russian gas. Borrell added that the situation in Ukraine is entering a new phase with the threat of an alleged nuclear war. The senior official said European Union's measures to date include restrictions on energy supplies from Russia, bans on financial transactions with entities of the Eurasian giant, and the freezing of assets.
Yes, we will have a clear policy towards Ukraine. This will be dominated by the intention and desire that Ukraine will become member of the European Union. This policy has a clear objective. It will be possible because we will not be dependent on Russia.
The operator of the Turkey Stream gas pipeline was forced to suspend maintenance and repair work on the pipeline due to sanctions by the European Union. The authorities at the Dutch company South Stream Transport BV, which belongs to Gazprom and manages this pipeline that runs along the bottom of the Black Sea from Russia to Turkey, informed that the Netherlands had revoked in advance the export license of the operator due to the entry into force of new sanctions of the European Union. They also detailed that the restriction prohibit the supply of goods of the sector to Russia, as well as the maintenance of the gas pipeline in the exclusive economic zone and in the continental shelf of Russia. In the context of the European energy crisis, the government of Qatar announced that it will supply 12 to 15 million tons of liquefied natural gas per year to the European continent. The Qatari energy minister, Saad Al-Kabi, announced at the Energy Intelligence Forum held in London that his country will be in a position to increase its fuel supply to Europe from the current 5 to 10 million to between 12 and 15 million. Once the project to expand its production capacity is completed, which will increase the country's potential to between 70 and 126 million tons per year. The growth of Qatar's share along with the United States in the European energy market is a consequence of the attack that destroyed the Russian Nord Stream gas pipeline, which connected the Slavic nation with Germany. More news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back From the South. A new tropical wave is in formation and it threatens to affect the Central America and the Caribbean in the coming days. The National Hurricane Center has issued several warnings for the countries in the region due to the new tropical wave that is forming in the waters north of Venezuela. Meteorological forecasts said that the phenomenon has a 60% probability of becoming a storm or tropical depression in the next 48 hours if the system remains over open waters. They also said that if they were to become a tropical depression, it would be named Julia. In Iran, more than 500 people were injured after a 5.4 magnitude earthquake shook the northwest of the country. The crisis management chief in Joy County, Salem Joy said 530 people had been injured as a result of the earthquake. He also said that most of the victims suffered minor injuries while attempting to exit their homes. According to local media, quake caused the destruction of 50 houses, while another 500 were damaged. Rescue and search teams are presently working in the area. Regarding the latest Ebola outbreak in Uganda, WHO Director Tedros Ghebreyesus stated on Wednesday the country remains on high alert as there have been no movement restrictions from the affected districts. The top official also provided a tally of patients.
So far, 63 confirmed and probable cases have been reported, including 29 deaths. 10 health workers have been infected and 4 have died. 4 people have recovered and are receiving follow-up care.
The World Health Organization issued an alert over 4 cough and cold syrups made by Maiden Pharmaceuticals in India, warning they could be linked to the death of 66 children in the Gambia.
Medicines are cough and cold syrups produced by Maiden Pharmaceuticals Limited in India. WHO is conducting further investigation with the company and regulatory authorities in India. WHO recommends all countries detect and remove these products from circulation to prevent further harm to patients.
On Wednesday, a new confrontation between the Israeli army force and Palestinian groups in the zone of West Bank left 1 dead and 2 injured. The Palestinian Health Ministry, Meikele, said that Ala Zagal died from a gunshot wound to the head and that 2 Palestinian TV journalists who were in the area during the operation were wounded. The Israeli army confirmed an operation in the town of Deir al-Hatab. Since March, Israel has launched hundreds of raids in the northern West Bank, including Nablus and Jenin. They have triggered clashes in which dozens of Palestinians have been killed, including fighters. The building of concrete houses has been the trend everywhere. In Iraq, however, the northern city of Akkara has its own way of doing things. They choose stones instead of, which is an incredible way of fighting climate change. But what makes it even more special is the fact that the initiative comes from a developing nation, and even more so, one that has been devastated by a war. Let's see the next material.
According to the mayor of Arke, Baland Reda Subar, historical architecture gives clues as to how things could be approached in order to obtain a much friendly environment. Using stone allows the city to reduce climate change because cement radiates heat, raises temperatures, and affects the environment.
We promote building stone houses to preserve the historical identity of a city and also to reduce climate change, since the concrete actually radiates heat, raises temperatures, and affects the environment. The city is very old, so there weren't cement nor concrete blocks at the time, or any other high-tech materials. There were only stones, which they brought from the mountains and used in construction.
In addition, stone is a material that is largely available in the area and more affordable.
It was quite easy for people to build with stones, since it is cheap and it is available. The workforce is also available, and aesthetically, building with stone can be much more artistic than with cement.
Nature has also ways of expressing itself, and there are perks to building with stone. For example, walls are thicker, which favors thermal insulation.
Stone walls are wide, whereas concrete blocks may only be about 20 centimeters, that is 7.9 inches wide, while the stones are 40 or 60 centimeters wide.
It's impressive to see how developing countries also commit to the fight against climate change, not with money, which they don't have, but with ingenuity and drive.
We have come to the end of this news program. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.